This is problem 12 from chapter 20 of your textbook. And it gives us this table here of quantities of subscriptions to an economics app, total utility from each of those number of subscriptions, and then also the quantity of subscriptions to an office productivity app, and total utility for each number that you could purchase of that. And it tells us to refer to this table and assume that each year the consumer buys only annual subscriptions to the economic statistics apps and subscriptions to office productivity apps. So these are the only two things that this person's buying. And the price of the subscription to each economics app is $4 a year, and the subscription to the office apps is $40 per year. So if the consumer's available income is $164 per year, it wants us to decide how many of each of these products he's going to buy at his consumer optimum. So I'm going to use Excel to help me recreate this table and sort of add in the new columns that we'll need to solve the problem. You can do this on a piece of paper or however you prefer. So I'll pull up Excel here where I've already typed in the quantities and total utility that it gave me in the problem. And then we'll add some columns as we go along. So we need to remember, and I have it down here in my Excel thing, that the consumer optimizing rule is that we want our marginal utility for one product over the price of that product to equal the marginal utility for the other product over the price of that product. And the other rule that I don't have written down here is that we have to exhaust the entire budget. So this person's budget, it said, was $164 a year. So I'll type that into my Excel spreadsheet just so I remember it. Down here, our budget is $164. Now, so it looks like where I made this table, I did it for a different example. So let's fix these numbers here to make a match the table in this example for our total utility. 30, 50. So you can do this, like I said, in Excel or on your sheet of paper. 30, 50, 60, 68, 72, and 75 are our total utilities for the econ. And my total utilities for the productivity app are 600, 1100, 1500, 1800. I'm just copying the table straight out of the problem. 2000 and 2100. Okay, so now my table in Excel matches the table in the problem. So our task is to find where the marginal utility over price equals the marginal utility over price. And I'll do this by adding another column in here for econ. So I'll put my marginal utility for econ apps in this column. And in this column, I'll put my marginal utility for the productivity app. Okay, so what they gave us in the problem was total utility. Remember that marginal utility is just the additional utility you get from adding one unit. So for our first unit, the marginal utility and total utility are equal to each other because that's how much utility we got from adding just one unit, from having 0 to having 1. So for econ, we get 30 utility units from just having 1. Now, to figure out the marginal utility for our second unit, we'll look at the total utility, which is 50, and subtract the utility that we already had from just having 1, and that will tell us how much we get from adding an additional econ subscription. So here we have 50 total utility from having 2 subscriptions, but we only had 30 from having 1 subscription. So the marginal utility of adding that second subscription for us is 50 minus 30, which is 20. And we'll do that all the way down this column. So for the third, adding the third econ subscription, we went from 50 to 60 in our total utility. So the third one gave us an additional 10 units of utility. So the marginal utility of that third one was 10. For the fourth one, similarly, from 60 to 68, we get an additional 8 out of that fourth one. For the fifth one, we go from 68 to 72, so we get an additional 4. And then for the last one, the sixth one, we go from 72 to 75, so that last one gave us an additional 3 units of utility. We'll do the same thing over here for the productivity app. So our first one, of course, gives us whatever our total utility for the first one is the same thing as the marginal utility for that first one. And then for the second one, we'll do the subtraction here. We have a total of 1,100. We had only 600 for the first one, so that means the second one gave us 500. The third one gives us 400. The fourth one gives us 300. The fifth one gives us 200. And the sixth one gives us 100. So now we've got our marginal utilities filled in for both products. Remember, what we're looking for, though, is marginal utility divided by price. So I'll go ahead and add in another column for each of our products where we can put in our marginal utility divided by price. This one's for econ. And over here, I'll do the same thing, marginal utility divided by price for the productivity app. Because this is ultimately what we need to be able to satisfy our consumer optimizing rule. So remember, I'll flip back over to the question here and figure out what our price for the econ subscriptions was. It tells us in the question that the price of subscription to the econ apps is $4 per year. So I'll put that in my Excel. So price of econ is $4 per year, and my price of productivity app is $40 per year. So in my marginal utility divided by price column, I'm just going to put whatever my marginal utility was, which for this row in this case is 30, divided by what the price for that product is. So in Excel, I can do that by putting in a formula. I'll say I want the marginal utility, which is in cell C2, divided by the price of the econ products, which I have down here in cell B17. And there I have my marginal utility divided by price. And I'll do that all the way down this column. Marginal utility divided by price. Marginal utility divided by price. Marginal utility divided by price. Okay, so I have that for my econ subscriptions, and I just have to do the same thing over here for my productivity subscriptions. So I'll do my marginal utility, which is 600, divided by the price of my productivity apps, which is 40 down here. And actually, I can put in, just because I'm in Excel, I can put in these dollar signs so that it will always refer to that same price cell. And then I can just copy that formula down in the rest of my table here to make it fill in. Or you could do it the way I did the other column. You put it in individually every time. It's fine either way. Okay, so now that we've got our table filled in everywhere, all we need to look at are these two columns, marginal utility divided by price for the econ apps, and then the marginal utility divided by price for the productivity apps. Because remember, all we're trying to do is satisfy this optimizing rule here, that the marginal utility over price has to be equal for each of the two products. So we'll look for which row makes them equal. So we could have one econ subscription and 4 productivity subscriptions, and they'd be equal. We've had 75 and 75 for both, or 7.5 for both. Or we could have 5 and 5 by choosing these two, or we could have 2.5 and 2.5 by choosing these two. So we have three options for where they're equal. We could choose, let's see, I'll color code them so it's easier to look at. We could choose the blue 2, and we have equal mu over p, right? Or we could choose the green ones and have equal. They both have 5. Or we could choose the, let's go with red ones, and they both have 2.5. So those are our three options for making our mu over p equal. But remember, there's only one place where our second rule is also met. Our second rule is that we have to use the entire budget. So let's look at what happens if we go with the blue ones. If we buy one econ subscription and we buy 4 productivity subscriptions, then we're spending $4 on econ subscriptions. 4 times 1, because we're only buying one of those, and we're buying 4 of the productivity subscriptions, so we're spending 4 times 40 for the productivity subscription. So the total amount we're spending there is $164, which is exactly what our total budget is. So the blue boxes have to be our answer. Just as an example, let's look at what happens in if we go with our green boxes. If we bought 2 econ subscriptions, we would have a budget of 2 times our econ price, which is 4, plus we'd have to buy 5 productivity apps to make our mu over p equal. So our mu over p is 5 for the green boxes. So we have 5 productivity apps times the price of those, which is 40, and there our total amount we'd spend is $208. So you can see that although they have the equal mu over p, so they qualify for this consumer optimizing rule here, they don't qualify for the second rule, which is that we have to use our budget. So our budget was $164. We would have to use $208 to do the green option. So the blue option is the one we have to go with because it's the one that uses the same amount as our budget here. And you could do that same calculation for the red boxes, the other places where the mu over p's are equal, and you again would not get 164 for your budget. As an exercise, you can do that and just prove that to yourself. So what we found is that we need to go with the blue boxes in order to maximize our consumption and our utility at the same time for this person. So we need to purchase 1 of our econ subscriptions, and we need to purchase 4 of our productivity apps so that our mu over p's are equal at 7.5, and so that we use our whole budget of 164. So I'm going to flip back to the homework problem and put in that information. So we want 1 econ app and 4 productivity apps, and we can check that, and we're good to go. And it tells us, see, that our mu over p should be 7.5, which is what we found using Excel. All right, I hope that helps. If you have more questions, let me know or stop by office hours.